Oh, hi there. Didn't see you. You're just in time. I'm just finishing up the electrical on this family viewing area for the maternity ward here at the hospital. I tell you, I've worked on a lot of different projects, but working here at a hospital, well, it gives you a lot to think about. This was the first time I ever worked in one, and to be honest, I wasn't sure what to expect. There's a lot of things you need to consider. For instance, I'll bet you didn't know patients are at risk of infection whenever they're being cared for in a hospital, and that there is a heightened risk of infection when construction is occurring at the hospital. And in addition to the spread of infection, we need to make sure to contain the dust we create from our work, as it affects all kinds of things, like patients' allergies, breathing, and the clogging of instruments and fire detectors. Fortunately, there are some pretty simple things you can do to protect patients whenever you're on the job site. But don't worry, you don't have to hear it from me. I've got a better idea. Let me show you a training video they showed me before I started working here at the hospital. It gives you some real easy tips to avoid contaminating patients. Besides, it'll give me a chance to try out the new TV system.
Hi, welcome to this week's episode of This Old Hospital. On today's program, we're going to talk about infection control during construction and tell you everything you need to know to protect patients while working in a healthcare facility. But first, let's meet the owners of this project. Kathy Wilson, safety officer here at Polgar Memorial Hospital, and her colleague, infection control professional Mark McGinn. Hey, how you guys doing today?
Hey, great, Scott.
All right, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So I hear you two are expecting some little ones next year.
That's right, about 3,000 babies.
Whoa! Well, we'll definitely need to make some room for you two.
That's great, Scott, and we're excited. But we do have some concerns. We are a hospital, and there's some real risk to having a construction crew working here.
Well, funny you should mention that, because I'm on my way to talk to our own guru of infection control, project manager Paul Nash. Paul has been key in getting the construction crew here up to speed on controlling contaminants on the job site. Let's find out firsthand how we did it. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Scott.
How's it going?
Going good. How you doing?
Okay.
Good.
So, here we are. Everything's been approved. The crew's here, the equipment's here, so let's get started.
Well, not so fast. Unlike a lot of the places that you and I have worked, this is a hospital, and we need to be super careful not to infect the patients around us.
Infections? Come on, Paul. It's not like we're treating patients or we're asking them to hold 2x4s here on the job site.
No, you're right, but anytime a construction crew comes on a job site to begin a project, no matter how small or easy, they run the risk of infecting patients.
Really?
Absolutely. Almost 2 million people a year acquire infection just staying at a hospital, and of those, almost 100,000 people die.
Okay, but all of those are not the direct result of construction.
You're right, but would you believe almost 5,000 people a year die from infections resulting from contaminated air, water, and construction?
Wow, I can't believe it. Okay, so how can we help?
Well, there are some things you can do when you get on the job site to help avoid potential contamination. Always know which patients are going to be affected by the job site. In other words, know the scope of your project and which patients could be affected by the work. Also, always know your proximity to at-risk patients. For example, are you near the nursery, the emergency room, intensive care, or oncology? And finally, have a plan on how you're going to protect those patients. In this case, we've shut down the whole floor.
It sounds like you just need to be very aware of the job site when working in hospitals.
That's partially true. Being in construction, we're always aware of working with potentially hazardous equipment and materials, and let's face it, all types of different situations. This is different because when we come on a job site at a hospital, we're taking on a whole new responsibility.
Like what? Making sure you don't go knocking down any old walls before finding out what type of medical system might be lurking behind it?
That's something you always need to be aware of, but what I'm talking about is being aware of patients, staff, and visitors around you. In a way, once we come on a hospital job site, we become part of the caregiving team.
You're not going to ask me to change a bedpan, are you?
No, nothing like that. But you need to make sure, above all else, that what comes into a job site stays there and doesn't infect the patients around you.
Well, is there any way I can see exactly what you're talking about up close and personal?
Sure. We've got Jay, one of our general contractors, working just around the corner. He can give you a first-hand look at how we're containing the job site and keeping our patients safe.
Great. I'll see you later.
Okay, will do.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Hey, Scott, don't forget to put on that Tyvek suit.
Right. As you can see, I put on a Tyvek suit. We're using these suits on this site as part of our defense against contamination in the hospital. Let's talk to Jay about other containment issues. Jay? Hi, I'm Scott. How are you?
I'm great, Scott. Welcome to my neck of the woods.
Thanks, looks great. So Paul tells me that you and your crew are experts at preventing contaminants from entering or leaving a job site.
Well, we sure try.
So tell me how we started preventing infection.
Well, the first thing we did was perform a risk assessment with the hospital safety officer, the infection control professional, and the head of the nursing unit on this floor.
Sounds like a lot of different people.
And they all have very different concerns that we need to be aware of. The bottom line is protecting patients, and that's what we try to do before we hammer the first nail.
Are patients the only ones at risk?
They are the primary focus, but the risk assessment should take the hospital staff and even visitors to the hospital into consideration.
Now you mentioned risk assessment. That sounds pretty serious.
Very serious and very necessary, but not hard to accomplish.
So what's involved?
On the first day, we walked the floor with the hospital team. We already knew we were expanding the nursery, and the old nursery would be a high-risk area.
So you knew the patients were about 75 feet down the hall, and in this case, it was a high-risk area of the hospital.
Every part of the hospital is risky. It's just varying degrees of risk.
So we know who the patients are and we know where they are. Now what?
Fortunately, we have a game plan that we follow for every hospital job site. There are 5 areas that we focus on to ensure patients are protected. I can boil them down for you in 5 quick bullet points. They are: containment of the job site, entry and egress of the work site, containment and transport of construction materials, decontamination methods for construction crews, and cleanup of work site.
So what can you tell me about each of these and how you use them to protect patients?
You know what? Why don't we take a walk and talk to Margot? She's one of our drywallers and could show us what these key concepts are and how we implemented them to ensure patient safety.
Great. Let's go take a look.
Hi, Margot.
Hey guys.
How's that drywalling coming along?
Oh, give a lady a break. We'll be done by lunchtime.
Great.
So Margot, Jay tells me that you're an expert at confining contaminants to the job site.
Actually, the whole crew is. It's a little tough to get used to, but it's not hard to do.
Now, as I understand it, there are 5 areas that you and your crew focus on to ensure that they don't contaminate other areas outside of the job site.
Right, 5 areas. Containment of the work site, entry and egress from the work site, containment and transport of materials to the work site, decontamination methods for construction workers, and finally, cleanup of the work site.
So what can you tell me about containment on the job site?
Well, there are primarily 2 parts to any construction process. First, you have demolition, and after the demolition comes construction.
So what do we do about this? How exactly do we contain the job site?
You need to learn our motto: what comes in, stays in. Any material we bring onto the site, or for that matter, anything that we're doing on the job site, stays on the job site, and it doesn't get relocated to any other area in the hospital.
Even brand new materials? They can't be hazardous.
You've got to learn the motto. Anything on this job site, even if it's new, contains material that can increase the risk of contamination.
So how do we contain this job site?
Oh, we did a bunch of things. First of all, we made sure that all the doors were closed and that they remained sealed. Next, we sealed the area with fire-rated plastic and attached a HEPA filter unit to control any dust or impurities in the air. The HEPA unit also helps us to keep the construction site under negative air pressure relative to the surrounding environment. We want to keep all the dust to ourselves on a project. We've also got construction tubing running out of the window over there, down to a dumpster at the base of the building, so we can remove larger debris without having to travel through patient areas.
You mentioned negative air pressure. I understand that means that there's less pressure inside the job site than out. But how do you measure that?
There's a couple different ways you can do that. You can do a metered test, or you can do an audio tape test. You take a piece of audio tape, you hang it from up above, and you can check to see whether you have negative air pressure.
Was that all you guys did?
Oh, no. We've got a couple of air ducts in here. One there. There's another one down the hall. And each one of those could potentially carry dust down into the patient areas. We sealed them up with plastic and duct tape after we checked with the safety officer to make sure it was okay to block the vents and the fire alarm sensors.
We also sealed the job site with floor-to-ceiling fire-rated plastic sheeting, using duct tape around the seams. By doing this, we help control dust and debris and maintain fire protection in the job space.
That sounds fairly comprehensive.
Okay, every organization is going to handle containment of the work site somewhat differently. Depending on risk assessment and based on the judgment of the key people involved in the project.
All of these things sound great, and you can anticipate some things, but come on, guys, this is a hospital. You have patients being moved around as part of their overall care. How do you work around patients getting transported around the facility?
It's interesting that you mentioned that. One of the things that we needed to ensure as we were figuring out how to go about containing this area was whether we'd have patients being transported near here and how close they would be. It's something you really need to try to minimize as much as you can.
One of the things we worked out with the head of the unit was some alternate routes that staff or patients could use to avoid any possible contamination. That's worked out really well.
Good. So how about entering or exiting a job site? How do you manage that?
Well, Scott, there's some simple things construction workers can do to avoid dragging dirt and dust all over a facility. First of all, always assess the volume of dirt and make sure that you're not taking it with you when you leave.
Also, on most job sites, you'll find a tack mat or a walk-off mat that will collect dust and other contaminants as workers enter and exit the job site.
Great tips. But speaking of exiting the job site, I'm going to exit here and look at how the rest of the project is going.
Whoa, you're not going anywhere until you do a little work for us.
Oh, brother, I thought I could escape.
Oh, don't worry, we won't run you ragged. Just take this card over to Vinny for me.
Okay, well, away I go.
No. This has got to be covered. You've got to keep the contaminants inside the cart.
Looks clean to me.
Even if it looks new, you can't risk contaminating patients.
Scott, take this cover and place it on top of the cart. That little bit of protection may make all the difference in the world in protecting patients.
Okay, I guess you guys squeezed in another important message about containment and transport of construction materials.
And before you get outside, wipe it down, take off that Tyvek suit before you leave the containment area.
Words to live by. I'll see you guys later. Hi, Vinny. How's the electrical going?
It's going great. Thanks for bringing that material.
No problem. It looks like those guys are still seeing some of the effects of the demolition crew.
They absolutely are. It's been a real challenge. Fortunately, as part of our game plan, we have some simple solutions to decontaminate whenever we enter or exit a job site.
Such as?
Such as closing doors and using tack mats.
Right. Margot talked about using tack mats to get stuff off your feet. But what about getting all the dust off your clothes?
Well, every job site's going to be different. On this job, they're wearing Tyvek suits on the other side that they can remove before leaving the job site.
What if they don't provide Tyvek suits or bunny suits or coveralls?
Well, it's easy enough. I like to advise the buddy system. That is, your buddy takes a quick gander at you and brushes off any contaminants you might not readily see or be able to reach.
Before I check in with our customers, Kathy and Mark, do you want to demonstrate the buddy system on me?
No problem. Let me get you around here. Okay, you're good to go.
Wow, I've learned a lot about decontamination today. Thanks a lot. See you later.
Okay, take it easy. Hey, don't forget to close that door on your way out.
Will do.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Well, we're happy with the project, but not happy with the mess.
Not to worry. When we don't get down the construction tube, we'll clean up with the HEPA vacuum. We've also got some covered carts that we're going to use to remove any equipment or materials we used.
I have to tell you, given everything I've learned about contamination, I'm a little concerned about wheeling all those carts through the hallways and down the elevators.
We were too. That's why we designated alternate exits for the crew.
Not only that, given we're near a nursery, we've worked out specific times when we can use the elevators so as not to disrupt the flow and care of the patients.
How about dismantling the barriers? Anything we need to know about that?
We generally wipe down the plastic before pulling it off. Now, when pulling it down, we'll fold the contaminated side into itself and then place it on the cart. As an additional precaution, we'll wipe down the cart for any excess dust.
Well, Jay, since you're such an expert at cleaning, I'm going to leave you to clean up this mess while I wrap up the show.
Why am I not surprised?
Remember, Always assess the risk of contaminants being released off a job site. Take the precautions and steps mentioned in this video to contain those hazards. And don't forget, when working on any project, there are 5 key areas you need to remember in order to protect patients. They are: first, containment of the job site. Remember, what comes into the job site stays in. Use HEPA filters to purify the air and to block vents as necessary to prevent the release of contaminants. Remember to use fire-rated plastic sheeting to secure the worksite area. Also, work with the staff to develop alternate patient transportation routes. Second, entry and egress of the worksite. Assess the volume of dirt in the area and make sure that you're not taking it with you. Use tack mats to avoid carrying dust. Third, containment and transport of construction materials. Cover carts to minimize the risk of patient contamination from construction materials. Fourth, decontamination methods for construction crews. Again, use tack mats to help get dust off your feet. Wear removable overalls or Tyvek suits and remove or dispose of properly. Use the buddy system to remove excess dirt and vacuum off with HEPA vac before exiting work area. Fifth and finally, cleanup of worksite. Make sure you leave the job site better than you found it. When you're done with the job, use a HEPA vacuum and filter to get rid of any lingering impurities. Use covered carts to aid in the removal of materials, and as necessary, create alternative routes and designated times to remove materials. Anyway, that wraps it up, so thanks for tuning in. I hope you learned a lot about contamination control during construction. So until the next time, I'm Scott Wallace for This Old Hospital.
So what do you think? You ready to work in a hospital? It's simple. It always comes back to the patient. Know where you are relative to patients, and use the tips you learned in the video program to protect them from infections. If you ever have any questions, ask the project manager, the infection control professional, the safety director, or the person in charge of the unit. They'll be sure to steer you in the right direction. Well, thanks for watching. We will see you on the job site.